Hi, you're listening to a student-focused episode of the Sociology Show podcast. If you're studying the subject at GCSE, A-level, foundation, degree, or any other discipline, then this podcast could be of help to you. If you have a question for the show, then you can email the Sociology Show podcast at gmail.com, and one of the teachers, lecturers, examiners, or experts will answer your question for you. You can sponsor the show on the GoFundMe page and subscribe on all the usual podcast platforms. If you're going to class, going to the gym, or just chilling, put your headphones in and let's be sociology geeks together, eh? Hello and welcome to a student-focused episode of the Sociology Show. The Sociology Show podcast is brought to you in association with Tutor to You Sociology, the exam performance specialist for A-level and GCSE sociology students and teachers. And so you can visit tutortoyou.net/sociology, and there you can pick up revision guides, revision videos, flashcards, and everything else that you need for your A-level or GCSE sociology studies. And so for this episode, we're going to carry on talking about research methods, and in particular, we're going to focus on quantitative methods. Now, what I thought I'd do for you is give you some examples of studies that you can use. Remember, if you had a question on quantitative methods in an exam, you'd also need to back it up with examples. And so what I've done for this episode is I've selected 4 pieces of research. One is about questionnaires. One is a piece of research that used statistics. One is a piece of research that used the census. And one is one that used surveys, so all quantitative methods. And I've also selected research which is fairly recent. When I say fairly recent, I mean within the last 20 years. Sometimes students tend to refer to really old pieces of research that are perhaps not as relevant today as they could be. So let's start with questionnaires. So this piece of research is by Helen Connor and Sarah Jewson. The piece of research is called Social Class and Higher Education, and it's from 2010. So what Connor and Jewson did was they posted nearly 4,000 questionnaires to students in higher education institutions around the country, and their study was to try and look at the factors influencing the decision of working class students going to university. The high volume of self-completion questionnaires meant that the piece of research gave a macro-scale insight into the connection between wealth and university attendance. And it also identified that cultural capital, remember that's a term that Bourdieu used, that cultural capital still plays a huge role in university applications and parental expectations. So this is a good piece of research to refer to because 4,000 questionnaires is a fairly large sample. And what it also meant was they could really ask questions that dig down into the reasons as to why people go to university and then make comparisons between different social classes. So really good piece of research. The key things that you could think about here is the practical elements of the study. Obviously, it's quite difficult to get 4,000 questionnaires out posted and to make sure that you do actually get quite a few of them back. So you could think about some of those issues and problems, particularly of response rate. You could think about the ethical implications. Is it okay to ask people what their social class is, or to ask questions about how much their parents earn, for example? Also think about whether this was more of a positivist or an interpretivist research. And remember, something that's really useful for you to do when you're analysing research is think about what was the validity like for this? What was the representation like? What was the reliability like? So all factors that you can really consider for this piece of research. So that's our first bit. That's Connor and Jewson, Social Class and Higher Education, and that one's from 2010. So let's move on to something to do with statistics. So this piece of research is from 2007. This is a piece of research conducted by Bowling and Phillips, and it's called Disproportionate and Discriminatory, Reviewing the Evidence on Police Stop and Search. So this research relies on statistics collected by the police and recorded by the Home Office. The research identified that approximately 8.5 million car stops and 2.6 million foot stops are carried out annually in England and Wales. That's a lot. That's a huge number. If you bear in mind, we're talking about 68 million across the whole of the UK, so 2.6 million foot stops just in England and Wales within the course of a year. That's a lot. and 8.5 million car stops. And so what Bowling and Phillips state is that it's also the case that black people are much more likely to be arrested for specific kinds of offences, including street robbery and drug offences. Probably doesn't come as a massive surprise to you that, but this is a good one that's got statistical analysis to back up that argument about police racism or institutional racism or unfair treatment, inequality to do with ethnicity. Now, the reason this piece of research is quite useful as well is Bowling and Phillips accept that there is a number of conceptual and methodological problems relating to the collection and collation of these figures. So it's also quite good if you're talking about some of the problems of statistics. You may be aware of the dark figure of crime or the iceberg theory, for example, that crime statistics often don't give us the reasons, but also the full implication of what's actually occurring behind them. So for this study, once again, think about the practical elements. How difficult or easy is it to get hold of such statistics? Is there any ethical implications? Or is it okay to use statistics if they've previously been constructed? Remember, statistics by the government are a secondary source. So does that mean that they're totally ethical to use? Again, you could consider, is this a positivist or interpretivist research? And then those important questions of validity, reliability, representativeness. In particular, validity. How much can we trust the statistics? Do we believe everything that the government tell us? So, for statistics, really good piece of research. Bowling and Phillips, that's from 2007. Disproportionate and discriminatory, reviewing the evidence on police stop and search. And so our third method is looking at the census. And the census is really, really useful because it's possibly the most representative piece of research you can use. If you're not aware, the census is conducted every 10 years and it goes around to every single household. And it asks questions about household income, all the way up to things like what religion are we? So from the census, we can get really, really detailed macro representative data. So this study is by Anna and it's called Making Sense of the American Census from 2010. Now, what Weil did was she used the 2010 American Census to give an indication as to how the population has changed. Remember, it's conducted every 10 years. And so she could identify from the analysis of data that there's much more ethnic minorities in the USA than ever before, and that more and more people are becoming atheists. So this is also good for identifying patterns of secularization. She also noticed that the poverty gap has widened and that the number of people living alone has significantly increased, so also useful for the family as well. The census is essentially a population count that's conducted every 10 years on every household in a country, and the United States has actually been conducting a census of the population since 1790. So this data would really give you a good indication of how many people now still consider themselves religious, or how much it's dropped even within a 10-year period. You could notice a massive difference from 2010 to 2000 to 1990 and so on. Also really good for Marxism, understanding that the poverty gap has widened, and also those ideas to do with ethnic minorities. There's an increase in ethnic minorities, and you could discuss what kind of impacts that may have had as well. So once again, you can use PETs. Remember that. That was on a previous episode of the Sociology Show podcast. What are the practical, ethical, and theoretical elements that you could refer to here? Something you could really use this study for is if you wanted evidence of something that's highly representative. Remember, because the census covers so many people, then it's highly, highly representative. It should also be valid because you're not supposed to lie on the census. And actually, there'd be no benefit of lying at all because you're the person that fills it and it sends it back. You're not really lying for anyone's benefit. So the census is also considered fairly valid, which is quite surprising for quantitative data. And then also reliability as well, because the same questions are being asked to every household. So you're getting that repetition, that replication, which reliability is all about. So good piece of research. That's Anna Weil. That is ANA, and the surname is WAHL, Making Sense of the American Census, and that's from 2010. And so the last one that we're going to look at is looking at a piece of research that used surveys. And this research was conducted by Ruth Payne, and it's called Rewards and Sanctions in the Class. This is from 2015. Now, this study used 3 different surveys completed by UK secondary schools for pupils between years 7 and years 11. So that's between the ages of about 11 or 12 up to 16. The surveys asked pupils to state which rewards and punishments they found effective in controlling behaviour or motivating them in school. the pupils actually rated missing break or detentions as simply demotivating and not working. It didn't really have an impact. If a teacher used the threat of saying you're going to miss your break or you're going to get a detention, it didn't really inspire them, and they found it a little bit annoying, in fact. What she also found from the research, Ruth Payne, was that stamps, merits or stickers, whatever you call them in your school, were rated highly by students, particularly younger students. So in years 7 and 8, merit points or credit points were really, really effective in motivating the students. But she also noticed that decreased as the students got older. So by the time the students are in year 9 or 10 or 11, merit points really didn't have the same impact or effect on motivating factors. The incentive of the school reward trip was universally rated as effective on a large-scale survey. So actually many students said the thing they liked most about an academic year, or something they really, really remember from an academic year, was if they went on a school trip. So no surprise there that actually the school trip came top in terms of what acted as a good reward or motivator within school and education. So, same again, pets, remember that, practical, ethical, theoretical. You can have a think about Ruth Payne's research. Just how much validity would she get back? Would students answer the survey correctly? Would they answer it or just rush through it quite quickly, for example? What's this like for reliability? What's it like for representativeness? And are there any ethical issues as well? Do you think when you're sending out a survey to people who are under the age of 18, what do you ethically have to think about? And also, remember thinking about the language as well. If you're getting year 7s to fill this in, you can't use too much complex language. So there's a lot to consider about in terms of practicality and how to do a survey, particularly working with the young children. So just a reminder of that one. That is Ruth Payne, Rewards and Sanctions in the Class, and that's from 2015. So all of the studies I've just referred to here are part of a package that you can purchase from Tutor to You. This is called 21st Century Sociology, Contemporary Studies Work. Now, the reason this was put together by myself and a few other people was because we're trying to encourage students to use research which isn't really, really old. There's a lot of importance to the works of Mark and Durkheim and Weber and people like that. But remember, a lot of these studies were written a long, long time ago. So it would be really worth trying to get some more contemporary studies which were conducted within the last 20 years or so. So I've just given you 4. But if you would like to see some more studies that are a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more up to date, then please do go to Tutor to You, Sociology, and then search for 21st Century Sociology. And there's a workbook that you can have a look there. Thank you very much. And in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to repeat the same, but we are going to look at qualitative pieces of research. Thank you very much.
If you are a regular listener to the Sociology Show, then you could help with the costs of promoting and hosting the podcast. If you can spare even a small amount, then you can donate on the GoFundMe.com website by searching for The Sociology Show. There is no obligation, of course, and all future downloads will continue to be free. A huge thank you to all those that have already donated. Your kind gesture will help to keep the show going and growing. Best wishes and keep enjoying the show.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast. If you would like to contact the show or be interviewed, then please email thesociologyshowpodcast@gmail.com.